Hello, I'm Dr. Maurie Markman from City of Hope, and I want to discuss a very interesting paper. Actually, the title of the paper doesn't really give due credit to the provocative implications of the findings, which I'm going to briefly comment on. The paper is entitled "Cancer Stage Compared with Mortality as Endpoints in Randomized Clinical Trials of Cancer Screening. Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis." This was published in JAMA a little bit earlier this year. So what these investigators did, obviously, as I noted, is it's a meta-analysis. They looked at previously published randomized trials. So the question that was proposed is, can one use changes in cancer stage in a study like this, cancer screening? So you're screening a lot of patients for cancer, and your control arm relative to your screened arm, you see a shift in the stage. So you'll see, again, hypothetically, many more patients, statistically significant, with stage 1 disease once they're screened versus stage 2, 3, or 4 disease. And obviously other stages. In other words, you see less stage 4, less stage 3, more stage 1, more stage 2 when you screen the patients. You do the screening, you then do the test, you find the cancer, you stage them, etc. Staging has obviously been done for a long time. We have standard criteria for that. The question, though, that was proposed, and it's posed in each of these studies and then in the meta-analysis looked at, is, okay, you might have changed the stage, but did you ultimately change the mortality in the population that you were screening or not screening? So that obviously is going to be something you would look at potentially years later, maybe even decades later, meaning if the natural history of the disease was that even in stage 4 disease, the patients with stage 3 disease, the population may live, another 3, 5, 10 years, turns out on average. So you'd get an answer about the benefits of screening much earlier as a surrogate for if you just waited until survival, it would take a lot longer. That's the question. Now, again, kind of interesting based upon previous studies, but the question to be asked is, could you use such an analysis, in other words, a change in cancer stage, for an evaluation of the efficacy of multi-cancer screening tests that are being evaluated today? And those tests are generally molecular, of course, referring to blood-based. You can find certain abnormalities, then you would go and do screening on them. You do, again, other tests, you do imaging studies, you'd find the cancer, perhaps at a different stage. And then you would ultimately say, and if we wait another 10 or 15 years, we see an improvement in survival, not just change in the stage. So can you use simply changes in stage in a randomized trial in a multi-cancer screening test to demonstrate its ultimate impact on survival? So this was a meta-analysis of 41 randomized trials of cancer screening intervention versus the control group. Again, asking the question of whether a change in stage distribution correlated ultimately with a decrease in mortality. There were 6 breast cancer studies they looked at, 11 colorectal studies, 12 lung, 4 ovarian, 4 prostate. What is the bottom line? Where do they see the high correlation between a change in stage and ultimately a change in survival? The ovarian and the lung cancer studies, according to this analysis, there was that high correlation. So if one showed you had a lot more stage 1 lung cancer, or you had more stage 1 ovarian cancer, it did seem to correlate well with ultimately an examination of survival. Note that these are 2 tumor types that actually diagnosis to ultimate decision of survival is it could be relatively short. They showed a moderate correlation between, again, breast cancer within breast cancer for the change in stage versus survival in the studies that have been published. and a very weak correlation in colorectal cancer and prostate cancer between a change in stage and ultimate survival. Again, cancers, first of all, very common cancers, and second of all, cancers where that survival can be quite long. So their conclusion was using a change in stage as a surrogate for impact on overall survival may be suitable for some cancers, say ovarian and lung, but not for others, case colorectal and prostate. So it raises this incredibly important question about using change in stage as a surrogate when one is talking about multi-cancer screening tests that are being investigated today, but the data that may be required for regulatory approval of these tests to detect cancer for the purpose of impacting outcomes, and of course, for payment, CMS payment, for example, for the testing. These data would suggest that the conclusion that we could just use change in stage has got to be very seriously questioned. And hopefully those who are evaluating this question, those who are responsible for making the decisions, will in fact obviously explore this paper and other papers that look at these questions in their decision-making process. And I thank you for your attention.